I am not now, nor have I ever been part of an Antifa group. That having been said, though, I do identify as an anti-fascist in the broad sense of being someone who's actively opposed to fascism.
Mark Bray est américain sympa. Il est professeur d'histoire dans une université pas loin de New York. Et il y a 8 ans, en 2017, il a publié Antifa, un livre qui retrace l'histoire de l'antifascisme en Europe et aux États-Unis, un peu sous la forme d'un manuel de résistance au fascisme. Publié juste après la première accession au pouvoir de Donald Trump et surtout juste après l'attentat néo-nazi de Charlottesville, son livre devient rapidement un best-seller avant de sombrer progressivement dans l'oubli. L'histoire aurait pu s'arrêter là, mais 8 ans plus tard, l'assassinat de Charlie Kirk, un influenceur d'extrême droite, remet Mark Bray sur le devant de la scène malgré lui. Alors que rien ne relie le tueur de Charlie Kirk à une affiliation politique en particulier, Donald Trump en personne affirme que c'est à cause d'Antifa que son copain d'extrême droite est mort, ce qui veut pas dire grand chose, mais ce qui place Mark Bray, auteur d'un manuel de résistance antifasciste 8 ans plus tôt, comme le nouvel ennemi public numéro 1. Trump signe un décret qui désigne le mouvement Antifa comme une organisation terroriste. Mark Bray est menacé de mort sur les réseaux sociaux, son adresse personnelle est divulguée, ce qui le pousse, avec sa femme et ses 2 enfants, à quitter en urgence les États-Unis pour l'Espagne où il vit désormais.
The first Saturday in October, I was on the couch watching a New York Yankees playoff baseball game. My kids were on the floor playing with their toys. I was getting threats, and then one of the threats came in with my home address. And that escalated things instantly, especially in a country with so many guns. My partner was flying back from Chicago. I messaged her. She said, all right, just get the kids and leave. The quickness with which the attacks on me were escalating made us feel like it could continue on this upward trajectory in a way that it could get out of hand, and it could become too late. And we didn't want it to become too late to leave. I don't think that the system has yet reached a fully fascist dictatorship. We still have a Democratic Party. It's still legal to protest, although, of course, protesters get harassed and in some cases killed. We are somewhere between the American status quo and a dictatorship. And I think that there is a clearly fascist political agenda attempting to be put into place by Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth and people like that. And so, yes, without that, I would still be in New Jersey. And so in that sense, sure, I'm a victim of it, not on the same scale of someone who was killed like Renee Good.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
Not on the same scale of someone who is ripped away from their family forcibly and put in a concentration camp and deported, but still part of the larger conversation. Before Trump took power for his second term, I laid out for myself kind of 3 barometers of fascism to keep an eye on in this presidency so that I kind of wouldn't feel like I was too beholden to the moment. So I thought, all right, if I laid these things out in advance, I can kind of monitor them as they go. The first was basically the status of rights. The second one was the development of parallel institutions. Like the Nazis, for example, what they did was they left the pre-existing state somewhat intact, and they kind of went around it so that German middle-class figures wouldn't be alarmed. And so like institutions like the Gestapo or the concentration camp system were not officially state institutions. They were under the auspices of the Nazi Party. And the third thing that I came up with was sort of the use of emergencies or crises as an excuse for, quote unquote, temporarily suspending civil liberties and instituting martial law. And so I think that progress in a fascist sense, progress has been made to varying degrees on all 3, certainly in terms of the status of rights. The most obvious is looking at what's happening with undocumented people, but not only undocumented people, also citizens, even people with green cards and other kinds of legal statuses are being detained unlawfully, being thrown in detention centers, which scholars of concentration camps have convincingly compared to concentration camps. Also, in terms of the status of like queer and trans rights, there have been a lot of attacks, the right to protest. So I think there's been progress, not to the full extent, but progress made towards reducing the scale and scope and quality of rights. I think that ICE is obviously not a parallel institution, but I think it acts kind of like one. Having it compared to a paramilitary formation, I think is insightful. The agents cover their faces. They don't have identification. They're scooping people up without any kind of civilian oversight or accountability. They're functioning sort of like a parallel institution, I would say. And every problem for Trump is an emergency or a crisis that requires drastic solutions that take us beyond the realm of traditional parliamentary politics. So Antifa was this terrorist threat. Immigration is an invasion. Everything is a crisis. If we actually have something that's more of a real crisis, whether an actual terrorist attack or he throws us into a war or a natural disaster, that is what I'm concerned about, a context where his arguments that we need a strong man to just get the job done might sound a little little more plausible, but that hasn't happened yet. The basic story that these far-right groups in Europe and the US are telling is sort of the same story. It's that our country, whether it's the US, France, Spain, what have you, was great when it was an empire. Then we got soft. We let in a bunch of immigrants, and we succumbed to the left and to feminism and so forth. We got weak, and we are in danger of extinction if we don't kind of in some ways return to the imperial glory of our past. I was speaking at a university in Paris, and they were kind of half joking, half serious when they said, "We want to learn from you because you're a vision of our future." So I don't know what will happen, but I think there is a lot of cause for concern. And I think that Europe has really not fully come to terms with all of the demographic change that has come from migration from, colonial or formerly colonial countries that have changed the religious and racial and cultural makeup of the continent. Until that is actually sorted out, that you're going to have this problem. I mean, the US has sort of been grappling with issues like that for a bit longer because the racial demographics in the wake of slavery and so forth, but it's not as if we've sorted it out either. So there's certainly a lot of social rifts that have not been healed.